The year is 1918. The world is gripped in the final brutal throes of the Great War. America, having belatedly thrown its immense industrial and military weight into the conflict, was scrambling to fuel the war machine overseas. In this context of desperate urgency and global chaos, a true behemoth of the sea, the USS Cyclops, was not just a ship, she was a vital artery of the American naval effort. At 540 feet long and nearly 20,000 tons displacement, she was the largest collier, coal transport, in the U.S. Navy's auxiliary fleet, a floating symbol of industrial might, a veritable titan. Her mission was critical: transport crucial supplies to U.S. forces in South America and bring back a cargo essential for the production of munitions. Specifically, she was laden with a massive 11,000-ton shipment of manganese ore, a dense, heavy material indispensable for hardening steel used in cannons, armor plating, and shell casings. This was no ordinary cargo. It was the metallurgical lifeblood of the war effort, making the Cyclops and her transit a mission of paramount national importance. The destination was Baltimore, Maryland, where the ore would be swiftly offloaded and rushed to steel mills across the nation. However, beneath the veneer of national service and military order, the stage for disaster was subtly being set. The voyage had already been fraught with issues. Her captain, Commander George Worley, née Witchman, was a man of questionable temperament and a growing reputation for erratic behavior. Furthermore, the immense bulk of the manganese ore had been loaded deep in the ship's holds, a heavier-than-normal payload that many would later speculate placed an unforgiving stress on the collier's long haul. There were even rumors, later confirmed by reports, that one of her two powerful steam engines was already damaged, forcing her to operate at a reduced, vulnerable speed. Having departed Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the Cyclops made an unscheduled stop in Bridgetown, Barbados on March 3, 1918. This unplanned port of call, supposedly necessitated by a need for additional provisions, served as the last definitive sighting of the ship by the outside world. Here, amidst the bustling, humid Caribbean port, the colossal ship was briefly tied to the known world before slipping her lines and steaming north into the vast expanse of the Atlantic. She carried with her 306 souls, a mix of Navy crew, officers, and passengers, including the U.S. Consul General to Rio de Janeiro. On the afternoon of March 4, 1918, the Cyclops passed out of sight of Barbados's shores. The weather was described by the few reports collected later as fair, the seas moderate. There was no sense of impending doom, no rush of panic, and, most critically, no distress call. Not a single static-ridden whisper picked up by a listening post or passing vessel. The expectation was a routine 9-day sail to the Chesapeake Bay. But the Cyclops was sailing not just into the Atlantic shipping lanes, but into a void, entering a realm that would forever mark her as the largest non-combat loss of life in U.S. Navy history. An eternal ghost ship whose disappearance remains, over a century later, the most enduring and vexing maritime mystery to haunt American history. The Titan had vanished. The USS Cyclops, already struggling with the weight of global expectation, carried a literal anchor in its massive belly, 11,000 tons of high-grade manganese ore. This wasn't merely ballast or routine supply. It was, in the spring of 1918, a strategic commodity more valuable than gold to the embattled American war effort. Manganese, mined extensively in Brazil, was the essential hardening agent for steel, the material required for every cannon barrel, every sheet of battleship armor, and every shell casing fired by the Allied forces. Without this ore, the U.S. industrial machine risked.
Crucially, the unscheduled stop provided a fleeting opportunity for mechanics to assess the ongoing engine trouble.
The ship was known to be operating on only one functional engine, and the engineers on the island surely must have been aware of the immense risks associated with carrying 11,000 tons of manganese ore through the open Atlantic with compromised propulsion. Yet, despite the gravity of the mechanical failure and the known structural stress of the heavy cargo, Worley decided against any lengthy repairs. The urgency of the war, or perhaps simply the urgency of his own will, overshadowed prudent judgment. He ordered a rapid coaling in preparation for immediate departure. The events in Barbados, however brief, provided the last known communications regarding the Cyclops. A cable was sent confirming the ship's status and indicating her northward course. This communication is the final official thread connecting the vessel to the established world. As the afternoon wore on, the crew finished taking on the coal. The process was hurried, the atmosphere charged with an unexplained haste. Then came the ominous departure. On March 4, 1918, the USS Cyclops weighed anchor and steamed out of the harbor. She did not raise any flags indicating distress or necessary assistance, but she moved slowly, likely hindered by the one-engine operation and the deep drag of the manganese ore. As she cleared the protective embrace of the island, she turned north, aiming for the dangerous confluence of currents that lay on the route to Baltimore. The vast, empty horizon swallowed her whole. No subsequent visual sighting, radio transmission, or report of the ship's condition was ever recorded. Barbados was the final witness. The fact that the ship departed, knowing it was impaired, carrying a cargo that was stressing its structure, solidifies this port of call as a point of no return. It was not just a refueling stop. It was the final critical choice made by its captain, a choice that sent a colossal ship, 306 lives, and a vital shipment of war material directly into a mystery that would defy solution for a century. The sun set that day on a ship that was already, unbeknownst to the world, sailing into history as a ghost. As the great hull of the USS Cyclops sank beneath the northern horizon, leaving the shores of Barbados behind on March 4, 1918, a profound and unnerving silence descended. For a vessel of her size and importance, equipped with the era's standard radio telegraphy equipment, this silence was not merely unexpected, it was, in the context of a global war, an almost immediate red flag. The accepted naval protocol of the time mandated regular position reports, especially for military vessels carrying strategic cargo. Yet, after that final brief cable from Bridgetown, the Cyclops disappeared from the airwaves completely. In the days immediately following her departure, the lack of communication was treated with mild concern, but not yet panic. Wartime radio was notoriously unreliable. Static, enemy interference, and temporary equipment failures were common. Ships sometimes maintained radio silence to avoid detection by German U-boats, although this was usually a coordinated tactic. The Cyclops was expected to make port in Baltimore, Maryland, around March 13th or 14th. Naval operators along the American coast and in the Caribbean listened diligently, their expectations slowly eroding with each passing silent day. The date of the expected arrival came and went, then another day, then a week. The silence became deafening. Instead of the routine transmission confirming passage through a particular latitude or longitude, there was only the hum of an empty frequency. This absence of any signal, be it a position update, a request for assistance, or even a fragmented SOS, is the single most chilling aspect of the Cyclops mystery. A ship of her size, carrying over 300 souls, does not simply vanish instantaneously without
The crew was, by all accounts, diverse but unified by service. Yet the atmosphere aboard the Cyclops was poisoned by the contentious leadership of Commander George Worley. Reports suggested that Worley, whose true name was arguably Witchman, was of German heritage and notorious for his autocratic and allegedly brutal command. This internal strife led to an official investigation being opened prior to the ship's final voyage, a piece of evidence that fueled some of the darker conspiracy theories about mutiny or internal sabotage, though these claims were never substantiated. Ultimately, the vanishing of 306 people represents a historical wound that has never fully healed. The sheer scale of the loss, occurring in a time of intense global warfare, was overshadowed by the more immediate tragedies of the front lines, yet it remained, and still remains, the benchmark for naval loss outside of battle. The USS Cyclops did not just sink, it took an entire community of men with it, leaving behind a legacy defined by profound emptiness and the eternal question, what happened to them? As the silence from the USS Cyclops transitioned from suspicious to terrifying, the United States Navy was compelled to launch one of the most extensive maritime searches of its time, deploying ships across thousands of square miles of the vast Caribbean Sea and the western Atlantic Ocean. Initial efforts, commencing shortly after the ship's expected arrival date in mid-March 1918, were tentative, based on the slender hope that the collier was merely disabled and drifting. This hope quickly eroded into a grim, desperate dragnet. The scale of the missing vessel, a 540-foot Titan, mandated a search area encompassing the entirety of its projected route, from Barbados to the Chesapeake Bay. Naval patrols, supplemented by Coast Guard cutters and even some civilian vessels, were dispatched to scour the shipping lanes. Their mission was simple yet daunting: locate any sign of the massive ship, or failing that, any wreckage, debris, or lifeboats that might offer a clue to the fate of the 306 souls aboard. The search teams concentrated first in the area known for unpredictable weather and strong currents, and later, critically, focused on the notorious stretch of ocean that would later be immortalized as the Bermuda Triangle. Commanders meticulously charted grid patterns, hoping to spot the black hole of the Cyclops or the distinctive orange canvas of her life rafts. Every passing vessel was queried, every floating object scrutinized. Days turned into weeks, and the efforts intensified, fueled by public anxiety and pressure from the worried families. The Navy deployed aircraft, a relatively new technology in search and rescue, to fly reconnaissance missions over sections of the open sea, hoping the elevated vantage point would reveal the stricken ship. However, the results of this massive, sustained effort were profoundly disappointing and ultimately deeply disturbing. The search yielded nothing. In an age before transponders and satellite tracking, the complete absence of any tangible evidence was unprecedented for a vessel of the Cyclops' size. No one spotted a distressed flare, no one found a single body, and most bafflingly, not a solitary piece of wreckage, not a life preserver, a wooden crate, or a fuel barrel was ever recovered that could be definitively tied to the collier. For an 11,000-ton cargo ship to sink, leaving behind a blank, featureless ocean, defied all conventional understanding of maritime disasters. This void of evidence shifted the Navy's working theories from simple sinking to more esoteric possibilities. Could a catastrophic internal explosion have instantly disintegrated the vessel, scattering its components? Could the vessel have succumbed to a mass of magnetic anomalies, unknown natural forces, or even extraterrestrial intervention? The ultimate out-there conspiracy that defied any rational naval explanation. Ultimately, the absence of any wreckage ensured that these theories, both grounded and fantastical, would continue to haunt the narrative. The Cyclops remains a chilling case, where the most terrifying possibility is that the most direct and sudden natural event was responsible. A catastrophe so total, it simply evaporated all evidence, leaving the door wide open for perpetual speculation. Long before the term Bermuda Triangle was coined by writer Vincent Gaddis in 1964, the mysterious disappearance of the USS Cyclops in March 1918 laid one of the foundational stones for the legend of this notorious stretch of ocean. Though the region was not yet popularly known as the Devil's Sea, the Cyclops vanished precisely within its ill-defined boundaries, becoming a chilling precursor to a slew of similar unexplained vanishings that would later cement the area's enigmatic reputation. The Bermuda Triangle is generally understood to be a loosely triangular area in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, with its vertices at Bermuda, Miami, Florida, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. The Cyclops' last known position, after departing Barbados and heading towards Baltimore, placed her directly within this zone. For decades, her disappearance, alongside other prominent cases like Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers that vanished in 1945, and the USS Proteus and the USS Nereus,
Sister ships of the Cyclops that also vanished in the 1940s served as compelling evidence for those who sought a supernatural or extraterrestrial explanation for the region's anomalies. Proponents of the Bermuda Triangle theory often cite several factors that could contribute to such disappearances. One popular idea involves magnetic anomalies. It is believed by some that the region experiences unusual compass variations or magnetic disturbances that can disorient pilots and navigators, causing them to stray off course or lose control. While magnetic deviation is a known phenomenon that navigators account for, the idea that it could instantaneously incapacitate a large, experienced crew and a technologically advanced vessel like the Cyclops without any distress signal remains highly speculative. Another theory points to sudden, violent weather phenomena unique to the region. The Bermuda Triangle is prone to unpredictable hurricanes, tropical storms, and fast-forming waterspouts. Some speculate that the Cyclops might have encountered a rogue wave, an unusually large and spontaneous ocean surface wave that can engulf even enormous ships. The complete absence of wreckage could be explained by such a wave, which could potentially break a ship apart and drag its components quickly into the deep ocean before any debris could surface. However, records from the time period indicate relatively calm seas in the Cyclops' operational area during early March 1918, making a sudden obliterating storm less likely. Perhaps the most fantastic theories delve into the realm of the paranormal or extraterrestrial. These explanations suggest that the triangle is a portal to another dimension, a region where alien forces abduct vessels, or a zone where advanced ancient technologies, like those from a mythical Atlantis, create energy fields that cause ships and planes to vanish. While intriguing from a science fiction perspective, these theories, of course, lack any scientific basis. For naval investigators, however, the Bermuda Triangle connection often distracts from more grounded, if less dramatic explanations, like structural failure. Yet it cannot be denied that the Cyclops' fate, occurring within this infamous stretch of water, has cemented her place not just in naval history, but also in the annals of paranormal folklore. Her vanishing remains a testament to the ocean's power and mystery, ensuring that demanded an official response. Wilson's reaction transitioned from initial confidence in the Navy's ability to locate the vessel to a deep-seated dread over the inexplicable reality. For weeks, the president was privy to classified updates on the massive but fruitless search effort. He endured the agonizing reports that confirmed the lack of any debris, any lifeboat, or any distress signal. As the weeks dragged into months and the public clamored for answers, President Wilson eventually recognized the need to issue a statement that acknowledged the unprecedented nature of the loss, while simultaneously attempting to manage public anxiety during a war. In the late summer of 1918, after the official search was called off, the president was forced to authorize the somber decree that listed all 306 people aboard the Cyclops as presumed lost. This decision, painful and politically risky, was a tacit admission of defeat by the most powerful navy in the world. However, the final official communication issued by the administration regarding the Cyclops carried a tone of frustration and deep unease. The president himself, as commander-in-chief, reportedly took the loss personally, haunted by the complete absence of explanation. In a rare and striking statement that captured the nation's bewilderment, President Wilson himself summarized the incident with words that continue to define the mystery. He declared, "The great steamship Cyclops is gone, and not a trace of it has ever been found. Not a single man has survived to tell the tale. We can only conclude that the sea has claimed it as her own, and that this matter will be forever shrouded in mystery." This presidential declaration was significant for several reasons. Firstly, it elevated the incident beyond a simple accident into a matter of profound national uncertainty. Secondly, by explicitly stating that the fate of the ship was forever shrouded in mystery, Wilson essentially closed the door to a concrete, wartime explanation like enemy action, lending more credence to the idea of a catastrophic, unexplained natural event. The use of the phrase "the sea has claimed it as her own" conveyed a sense of ancient, indomitable force, a chilling acknowledgement that modern technology and naval prowess were ultimately powerless against this particular, silent demise. For the American public, the statement provided a final, albeit devastating, form of closure. It confirmed the worst fears of the families and solidified the Cyclops' place in history as the definitive, unsolved vanishing. President Wilson's public expression of dread served as a stark reminder that even in an age of industrialized warfare, the ocean remained the final, unconquerable frontier, capable of erasing a colossal ship and its entire complement without leaving a whisper of evidence. The official word was a concession to the unknown, ensuring that the ship would forever be remembered not for what it did, but for how utterly and completely it disappeared. The inexplicable loss of the USS Cyclops was not simply catalogued as a tragedy, it became a deep-seated, painful haunting within the institutional memory of the United States Navy. The event instantly transformed the colossal collier into a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even the most powerful and technologically advanced fleet could be instantly and utterly vanquished by the unpredictable, silent forces of the sea. For decades following the 1918 vanishing, the Cyclops served as a grim object lesson in naval doctrine, influencing decisions related to structural maintenance, cargo loading protocols, and communication procedures. The complete lack of a distress call was the particularly galling point. It underscored the vulnerability of relying solely on one communication system and led to
Equally baffling is the complete absence of wreckage. When large ships sink, they typically leave behind a trail of flotsam, wooden decking, life preservers, oil, fuel drums, or pieces of superstructure. Even if a ship is torpedoed or suffers internal explosion, debris is usually scattered across the surface. The search for the Cyclops was exhaustive, yet not a single piece of material, not a life ring stamped USS Cyclops, nor a piece of the dense manganese ore was ever definitively identified as belonging to the missing vessel. This absence supports the most extreme interpretation of the structural failure theory. If the ship broke apart and sank rapidly into the deep trenches of the Atlantic, the sheer weight of the hull and the manganese ore would have dragged most material down swiftly. Furthermore, the region where the Cyclops is believed to have vanished is subject to the powerful northward flow of the Gulf Stream. This swift current could have dispersed any small buoyant debris over vast distances, making recovery virtually impossible, or sweeping it into areas not covered by the initial search. The void of evidence also fuels the more sensational theories. Proponents of the Bermuda Triangle often point to the disappearance of wreckage as proof of forces beyond human comprehension. Perhaps dimensional rifts or magnetic forces that dematerialize the ship. While dramatic, the scientific reality points back to the density of the cargo, the vulnerability of the hull, and the swift currents of the ocean. Ultimately, the enduring enigma of the Cyclops is not just that it sank, but that it achieved a perfect, silent vanishing act. The failure to find either wreckage or a transmission means that the story will always remain incomplete, a historical record permanently defined by two blank spaces, one on the nautical charts and one on the radio log. The enduring mystery of the USS Cyclops has continuously drawn explorers, oceanographers, and amateur historians back to the vast, empty expanse of the Western Atlantic. Despite the official closure of the case over a century ago, the challenge of locating the largest missing ship in U.S. Navy history remains an irresistible lure. With the advent of sophisticated deep-sea search technology, modern expeditions have replaced the 1918 naval patrols, offering the best hope yet of providing definitive closure. These modern efforts are driven by technological leaps unavailable to the initial search teams. Instead of relying on visual sightings, contemporary explorers utilize advanced tools like side-scan sonar and magnetometers. Side-scan sonar sends out sound waves to map the seabed, creating detailed images of any anomalies or large objects resting on the ocean floor. Magnetometers, meanwhile, measure minute changes in the Earth's magnetic field, capable of detecting large concentrations of ferrous metal, such as a 540-foot steel hull and 11,000 tons of heavy manganese ore, buried beneath the sediment. The primary difficulty, however, remains the sheer size of the search grid. The Cyclops could have gone down anywhere along its 1,000-mile projected course. Compounding this challenge is the complex, unforgiving topography of the Atlantic seabed in that region, which includes the continental shelf, steep slopes, and deep trenches. Furthermore, the immense weight of the manganese ore suggests that if the ship broke up and sank, the fragments would have plunged hundreds, possibly thousands of feet down, making traditional visual identification impossible. One of the most notable modern attempts occurred in the 1960s, led by the renowned undersea researcher, the late George Kennedy, who dedicated years to the search. More recently, renewed interest has focused on specific geographical areas suggested by refined current modeling and historical data analysis. Experts have theorized that the most likely resting spot is along the edge of the continental shelf, where a sudden structural failure might have caused the hull to plummet down the slope into deeper water. A significant breakthrough, though not related to the Cyclops itself.
Ultimately, the Cyclops' place in American folklore is secure, not because it was found, but precisely because it was not. Its total vanishing allows the imagination to fill the void, giving rise to an enduring legend that serves as both a chilling war story and the cornerstone of the nation's most celebrated maritime mystery. The story of the USS Cyclops ultimately concludes not with a discovery or a solved puzzle, but with a profound act of remembrance, a final, enduring tribute to the 306 sailors and passengers who were consumed by the Atlantic Ocean. Over a century has passed since that fateful March day in 1918, yet the names of the lost are maintained with dignity, serving as the poignant human centerpiece of this unparalleled maritime enigma. Because the sea offered no bodies and no gravesite, the final resting place for the crew is the sea itself, an ocean that remains an open, unyielding memorial. The names of the 306 are permanently inscribed on the tablets of the walls of the missing at the East Coast Memorial in Battery Park, New York City. This monument, dedicated to those who died in the Western Atlantic during World War I and World War II and have no known graves, is the tangible place where families and the Navy pay their respects, acknowledging a loss that defies physical closure. It is a quiet, solemn space where the mystery of the Cyclops meets the reality of human grief. The greatest tribute, however, is the Navy's continuous refusal to close the book entirely. While the initial search was curtailed, the incident is never truly dismissed. The Cyclops remains a perpetual object of study for naval historians and oceanographers. This ongoing attention ensures